Welcome everyone to Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. Can everybody hear in both realms? I'd like to spin this around. Thanks, guys. So you guys can see the chapel. I'd like for you guys to say hi.
Hello.
So that's our community, virtual and live. Kind of cool. And my name is Thia Powers, and I'm pleased to be here with you. So tonight is our second hybrid meeting of the year, our second meeting of the year, and the hybrid is a pretty new format for us. So let us know how you think it's going. We have about 15 people again here tonight, and I don't see we have 30 people online. So I'm glad that we have technology that we can just keep meeting in whatever way, shape, or form we need to during these times of weirdness. Tonight, our topic is comfortable with uncertainty, being comfortable with uncertainty. As we continue to dwell in the midst of so much global and political change, how do we do this? 2 years in is a long time to deal with uncertainty every day. Can we be comfortable with uncertainty? Is that even possible? With all the big changes and the unknowns that swirl around us every day, sometimes it feels laughable to think that we could be comfortable with uncertainty. Shouldn't we be doing something? Maybe. Shouldn't we be worried? That never helps that much. The important thing to note is that we've been given these teachings that we've been working with in this Sangha exactly for times like this. They're perfect for these times. The teachings that we study speak about impermanence or anicca. That's just the way things are. They don't last. They come and they go. The teachings speak about suffering or dukkha as something that is to be anticipated, even expected, and investigated skillfully. The teachings talk about cause and effect as a universal law, karma, and about everything being essentially empty, spacious, and vibratory in nature. This is either terrifying or amazing, depending on your point of view. I believe, though, that these very teachings are the ones that are suited to aid us into an inquiry into uncertainty. Because in these days, we very much want to be certain, and we have so much technology that helps us feel certain that uncertainty has never been a popular place to be. But if we can become more comfortable with it day to day, we can actually begin to have an experience that's a little more spontaneous and relaxed. So this is what I'm working with in my own practice. And I'm becoming a little more comfortable with uncertainty. So my hope is that this will be helpful. This talk will be helpful for you guys tonight. So first, apologies to Pema Chodron. She has a wonderful book called Comfortable with Uncertainty, and I highly recommend it. This talk is not taken from that particular book, but if you're interested, it's definitely a good read. So in our short but hopefully meaningful journey tonight, we're going to look at some teachings from the Buddha where we can clearly see uncertainty in action and the remedy for uncertainty. And once we identify uncertainty, our second step will be to take a closer look, to investigate it and see what's underneath it. Because something, usually a motive or a desire, is always driving our feelings. And finally, we'll explore specific ways to rechart a course once we notice we're caught in that stressful net of uncertainty. And this final part is actually behavior modification from the Buddha's teachings, which are 2,500 years old, but we're just now teaching behavior modification. So they work perfectly together. So first of all, the teachings, a 2-minute history lesson. The Buddha was born into an aristocratic family in India called the Shakya clan. And he was the first and only son of this family in line for the throne to govern this whole community called the Shakyamuni clan. So he became known later as Shakyamuni Buddha. But early in his life, he renounced all of this and plunged himself into a very different life, the life that we read about, a life of complete uncertainty for many years as a wandering ascetic in India. History tells us at that time, ascetics in India had very little clothing, essentially no belongings, and certainly no money, and they begged for their sustenance. They chose this life with little to no responsibility so that nothing would distract them, so they could devote themselves completely to spiritual pursuits. And so later, Shakyamuni Buddha would organize monasteries that supported his followers so that they could survive and teach. But in the beginning, they were just out there in the hills and the woods on their own with no structures, really, just in little tribes. So the teachings after his awakening, after this experience of being a wandering ascetic, were built completely from this personal experience of liberation. And they included very much embracing and exploring emptiness and uncertainty, making friends with these things. So do we have to go to these extremes? I don't know. Folks have awakened without going to such extremes, but the important thing here is that he taught us to see suffering clearly, to not shrink back. This includes uncertainty, to not push it away, but to try to understand it and to be able to trace it to its roots so that we could at least lessen it, if not eradicate it. So the Buddha taught that feelings of uncertainty and anxiety always trace back to some form of craving, some desire for things to be different than they actually are. And so the next time you're longing for something to be different, just check out what exactly you're craving to be different and see if you're fighting with reality. And we all know reality always wins that battle. The Buddha, though, provided pathways for us out of these unpleasant conundrums of being human. And these are the teachings that we hear every week, some version of. So what did he find out when he strode into uncertainty, and why would he do that? Why leave the comforts of home and offer himself up to the unknown? So it's reported, he said, that he had seen the comforts of living well. As the ruler's son, he lived in luxury, and he knew in his heart that this was not a lasting happiness. And he had also seen, as a young prince, old age, sickness, and death. He realized that these experiences seemed inevitable for everyone. And he decided to seek a truth that he could experience with his own being, something that went beyond these two things, beyond material pleasures and beyond old age, sickness, and death, into what is now known or referred to sometimes as the deathless realm. We can only assume that he felt that trade-off between comfort and safety for extreme simplicity and uncertainty was worth the price. And in doing so, he gained ultimate freedom from both. So some simple takeaways from this brief history lesson and teachings could be: find out what your most important thing is. What are you seeking? And be committed to your own inquiry. Know what you're looking for. And also be willing to experience some discomfort or inconvenience as you seek that truth. Gone, gone, gone beyond, or gate, gate, paragate, is a chant that is now used for seekers that have indeed found and continue to find liberation along with the Shakyamuni Buddha. Let's take a closer look and see what's underneath uncertainty. Andrew Olinsky writes in his book, Unlimiting Mind, there are two aspects to every moment's experience. One is the content, what it is that you're aware of, and the other is the intention, what your emotional response is towards that object of awareness. In the Buddhist way of looking at things, the first, or the content, is largely irrelevant, while the second, the intention, is immensely important. We're told, and we've hopefully experienced, that insights around uncertainty and the other challenges in life simply can't unfold if they're not given time and nurtured with intention. As Simone Weil, the French philosopher and mystic, wrote, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. So in this practice, we give attention to our breath, to our body sensations, to our thoughts, to our actions every day. This is our practice on and off the cushion. And so we begin to see into the truth, hopefully, that every doubtful and uncertain moment is in fact an opportunity for investigation, to strengthen the practice of recognizing the ways that we prevent our well-being. We cling to stories that are old, even if they're true. We should probably let them go. Stories about us not being capable, stories about other people not being capable, things that seem to need to be fixed, things that are not fair, on and on and on. In uncertainty, we can see these cravings for things to be otherwise, cravings for security and predictability and perceived safety. Please check this out. It's not wrong, but it is the main cause for distress and for doubt. Distress and doubt and uncertainty can steal our zeal for practice and eventually knock us off the path. When meditating or practicing mindfulness, it's recommended to take a look at the kinds of thoughts that we regularly have, but not to place our sustained attention on the content of the thought. Simply work with distinguishing between the distraction of worried and anxious thoughts, of ill will, and the wholesomeness of accepting kinds of thoughts, and thoughts that make room for not knowing, thoughts that lead us back into open awareness of breath and body over and over and over, grounded here in this moment right now. This discernment in itself, noticing your kinds of thoughts and being able to guide them, is enough to identify what our motives might be and to work with uncertainty skillfully. So this fosters the growth of discernment, and this already is a kind of wisdom or insight. The practice of looking closely for motive and for what we're seeking begins to shift our experience. Uncertainty now can shift into the energy of spontaneity, which is also a kind of uncertainty. but it has a different kind of fuel behind it. Uncertainty can shift into receptivity, openness, not knowing what's going to happen, but instead of being laced with doubt and worry, it now feels different and kind of positive. It's still an unknowing, but it's fueled with a lighter and a more energizing motive. So this was a critical turning point for me when I realized this. It's very empowering. There can even be some feelings now of adventure with uncertainty and possibly of bravery in the face of the unknown or joy. Just track this with curiosity and see how this is for you. Gil Fronsdale says, hindering doubt is not the same as questioning doubt or uncertainty. Doubt as a hindrance leads to inaction and to giving up. Questioning doubt, however, inspires action and the impulse for understanding. It can, in fact, be helpful for a mindfulness practice. A curious attitude encourages deeper investigation. This is healthy doubt. This can overcome complacency and loosen preconceived ideas. So it's nice to make that distinction as well when you're working with uncertainty and doubt. The remedy for this is to look deeper. Just go again, examine it. And the takeaway is to distinguish being lost in unwholesome worry or fear, or are you working with skillful ways that involve curiosity, receptivity, and a sense of a lot of possibilities? I like to say, hold on loosely. That kind of sums it up. And last, I would like to offer practical applications. How do we do this? Michael Singer, who wrote the Surrender Experiment, says, life rarely unfolds exactly as we want it to. And if we stop and think about it, that makes perfect sense. The scope of this life is universal, and the fact that we are not actually in control of life's events should be self-evident. The universe has been around for 13.8 billion years, and the processes that determine the flow of life around us did not begin when we were born, nor will they end when we die. What manifests in front of us at any given moment is actually something truly extraordinary. It is the end result of all the forces that have been interacting together for billions of years. So bringing a sense of wonder always helps. A recent experience that illustrates the application of what I've been talking about is this. I was in bed, asleep. We have 3 elderly cats that don't sleep in the room with us, but have spots throughout the house where they sleep. They have health issues, and one in particular has a hard time breathing. She is also deaf and cries out with a loud wail at times. We think it might be too quiet in her head, and she needs a meditation teacher. So I'm fast asleep, and I suddenly wake to loud wails of Macy. Instantly, I wonder if she might be dying. If she can't breathe, or if she's simply crying out the way a deaf animal sometimes does, as if saying, "Where is everybody?" My heart was pounding, and it was silent in the house. I knew that if I got up and turned on the lights to check on her, all of the animals would wake up, and it would be a 2:30 a.m. brouhaha. So I waited. Nothing. Except my heart was really pounding. And I was thinking, what if she's dying and I'm just lying here? I realized if she was dying, there was nothing really that I could do about it. It was mostly about me wanting to be there, just a preference. Everything's still silent. I can feel my whole body processing waves of uncertainty about whether she's in trouble, whether I should rouse the whole household and check on her, and finally, ambivalence about whether she had actually cried out or if I had just dreamed it. Now I'm wide awake and the whole house continues to hum in sleep. It seems that all is well, or is it? I suddenly remembered the phrase, meet this moment as a friend. And the phrase, and this too. This is what uncertainty feels like, I told myself. I thought one day will bring the death of this beloved companion, and I felt instinctively that this was not that time. My body was still in react mode. I know from yoga that it takes about 20 minutes minimum for a fight or flight anxiety like I was having to subside from the nervous system. So to steer my mind away from all systems go mode and back toward the sleep I needed, I breathed in, meet this moment fully. I breathed out, meet it as a friend. After 10 or 15 minutes, I was able to drift back asleep in a clear and untroubled state. The next morning, by the way, all was indeed well, and I had become a little more accepting of unpredictability. I had viscerally anticipated the death of a being that I very much love, and I had experienced full-on uncertainty and anxiety all through my body. That's learning about suffering. So this is very much about looking through the eyes of love at the unpredictable nature of life, the guarantees of loss and of uncertainty. We can know that we can thaw our frightened feelings with the power of a compassionate regard for ourselves and for others. Even if things are a mess, the wisest action may be no discernible action. These abilities really are at our fingertips. I like to call them superpowers, whether we're talking about being generous with ourselves or others, acting out of kindness, practicing patience with someone who may not be able to keep up, or engaging in a fierce and focused mindfulness. These energies are nurtured with practice, and they willingly saturate our minds and hearts. This is the stuff that fills us with purpose and love and allows us to live side by side with uncertainty. This is how we liberate the great beauty in all of our hearts. Thank you for your ears.